All right, we're going to order decimals from least to greatest. So there's a couple ways that we can go ahead and do this. We can actually take the numbers, the decimals, make them on a number line, and then read the number line from left to right and ordering them from the smallest to the largest. Or we could look at the decimals, we could read through them and physically rewrite them so that they have values, the same number of decimal places in all the numbers. So if I read through these numbers, I have 7 and 25/100ths, 4 and 5/10ths, 6 and 5/10ths, 6, 5 and 5/10ths, and 8 and 75/100ths. You'll notice that I had one number that was a whole number with no decimal places. I had 3 of them that ended in the tenths place and 2 in the hundredths. So I look at the place value that is going to be the farthest to the right, which is hundredths place. And I'm going to physically rewrite all of these numbers so they all are ending in the hundredths place. Keeping in mind, if there is nothing there, I can add a 0 as a placeholder, and it would keep the number the same. So 7 and 25/100ths will remain 7 and 25/100ths because it ends in the hundredths place. 4 and 5/10ths would be rewritten as 4 and 50/100ths. It's the same thing as 4 and 5/10ths. 6 and 5/10ths is rewritten as 6 and 50/100ths. 6 will be rewritten as 6 and 0/100ths. 5 and 5/10ths would be rewritten as 5 and 50/100ths. And then 8 and 75/100ths already ends in the hundredths place. So I'm just going to keep the number the same. And then I take this list and I'm going to rewrite it so that I go from smallest to largest, looking at all the values. Okay? I look at this list and I have 4 and 5/10ths as my smallest. So I'm going to go ahead and write 4 and 5/10ths. Notice I wrote it as 4 and 50/100ths, but the original list had 4 and 5/10ths, so I'm going to write the original number. Okay? And then I go ahead and the next smallest would be the 5 and 50/100ths, so I'm going to rewrite it as 5 and 5/10ths, which it was in the original list. Then I have 6 and 0/100ths, or the same thing, it was 6 in the original. 6 and 50/100ths, which was the same thing as 6 and 5/10ths in the original. And then I have 7 and 25/100ths, and 8 and 75/100ths. Biggest thing that you want to make sure you do, because this chapter you will be organizing numbers from smallest to largest often, is to make sure you have the same number of numbers in the original list as you do in your new list that you wrote. So I have 6 in the original, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in my new list. So here is my final list of ordered from least to greatest. Make sure you have the same numbers written in that list and you didn't miss one. So now I'm going to look at my second list, and I'm actually going to show you another way to do this. Instead of actually physically rewriting them all to the same number of decimal places, I can go ahead and I can just look at the whole numbers and then rewrite the ones that I need to if they should come arise. So I look at my list: 6 and 25/100ths, 3, 2 and 5/10ths, 3 and 5/10ths, 5 and 75/100ths, and 5. And I'm going to simply look at the whole numbers to start with. The smallest whole number was 2, and it was with 2 and 5/10ths. So there's nothing else with a whole number of 2. So my smallest value for this list is going to be 2 and 5/10ths. Then I look at my 3's as a whole number, and I have 3 and 3 and 5/10ths. So I'm going to compare just those two. Well, 3 is the same thing as 3 and 0/10ths, and that would be smaller than 3 and 5/10ths. So 3 is going to come next, then 3 and 5/10ths. And then I look, I have no 4's as whole numbers, so I'm going to skip that one. I have 2 5 whole numbers, though. I have 1 5 and 75/100ths and 1 with 5. Again, 5 is the same thing as 5 and 0/100ths, and 5 and 0/100ths is smaller than 5 and 75/100ths. So 5 is going to come next, then 5 and 75/100ths. And then I have one number left, which has a whole number of 6, and 6 is my largest whole number, so 6 and 25/100ths would come last. That's my largest number in this data set, or in this group of numbers. Okay, so there's ordered from least to greatest.